what caused you to get fascinated by the way in which you use your words?
There's this X amount of social capital in being persuasive. You are literally saving people's lives by being good with your words. I am in service of consciousness and I serve ideas. It's up to you to write these stories. It just so happens that the best answers on the other side of the best questions.
One of the emerging technologies that, one of the concrete examples is artificial intelligence. There's the experience, which is AI is being integrated into society, and then there's the narratives about it. How you perceive AI to be as a tool for humanity rather than what some other people may think of it as.
AI is incredible for answers, but it's even better for the best questions. Being the question is the penultimate distinction. What are the best questions I could be asking you, GPT? The fantasy that we're fulfilling here is that you meet an AI that's meant for you, and together you both discover who you were meant to become.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Embracing Human podcast. Today I am your host, Scott Stone, and I'm here with a very special guest, Randy Roberts, who is, amongst other hats, an AI adventurer and enthusiast, a designer, full-stack creator, builder, dreamer, thinker, founder, and just a man who's been a beautiful mirror of questions for me. And we meet in the coffee shop every once and again, and Randy asks me these questions that make me go home and think. And so I really wanted to have him on the podcast here today to talk about all things artificial intelligence, futuristic thinking, and just giving each of the listeners some questions to think about to expand their horizon on the way in which they interact with life and the world. And so without further ado, Randy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Always good to tangle with you. Love meeting up with you in the shop there, and thanks for the kind intro. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, and Randy is a fellow Michigander.
Yep.
We both hail from the city of Detroit.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Men's up, baby.
The dirty glove.
Yep.
And I know exactly where I want to start, and it's one of two words that you've been thinking about a lot lately, and that word is emergence.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear about what you see emerging in the world today.
Yeah, so emergence is one of those things that as soon as it's a distinction, which, by the way, I think distinctions are some of the most powerful internal technology that we have available to us. And by that, I mean a distinction is a lens that you can look at the world through, right? So, and if you are really, really stubborn about it, you can embody a distinction to a degree. Like when you get a new car and you drive around and you feel great about your new car, and then you see all these other people out have your same car, and you're like, I never realized how many people have this car. It's because you've embodied the distinction of owning this car. This car has become a part of you. Well, you can try these things on intentionally as well, and let's take a distinction of completion, looking at your life through the lens of complete or incomplete. You can look at your room, it's messy, it's incomplete. You can look at your to-do list, and so on. And it takes on some fascinating colors or shades when you apply something that has a Boolean or a true false toggle, like complete or incomplete, to something that's very clearly not sequestrable by an on and off switch. And so it forces your brain to make linkages, and it forces you to find new questions or find new ways to interact with the mundane, which is really exciting. So anyway, distinctions are really powerful. One of my favorite distinctions at the moment is emergence. And emergence, I've been noticing it because it's the car I'm driving lately, popping up in so many different places, and kind of like a modal window for pop culture conversation. I hear it more and more and more. And it's going to mean something different in every setting, of course. But in my particular case, I love to design systems of thought and design systems in terms of whether that's, I make video games, I make music, I make software, I make teams, I make businesses. And so designing systems is really, really fun to me. And designing systems that have emergent capabilities and sequestering emergence in the context of creativity and creation and in creating living systems. Like a business is a living system. Software can be a living system. AI can be a living system. A person's a living system. And so anyway, from that perspective, to do little quick experiments or find questions or frameworks that lead to emergence and or in support of emergence. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And that's kind of a mouthful what I said, but I'm happy to supply some concrete examples if you'd like.
First off, I love dabbling in the world of distinctions and languaging, really understanding the ways in which we use the words to create our realities. And we're starting to see that in one concrete example, which being artificial intelligence, AI, ChatGPT, and understanding how we use our language creates a framework for that emerging technology to emerge something inside of it. And
Sure.
And I'm curious what caused you to get fascinated by the way in which you use your words.
It's been important for a long time. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. And there is for anybody out there that's been raised in any type of, high pressure pyramid religion or whatever you want to call it, that, you understand that there's this X amount of social capital in being persuasive and being able to deliver the word of the Lord as good or better than the next guy. And it's actually the most imperative thing because you are literally saving people's lives by being good with your words. Mm-hmm. That's the subtext, and sometimes maybe the main text that's beating you overhead. So I would go out and service, quite a bit when I was young. And, I gave talks in front of the congregation at an early age. And so language and both my parents are really smart, and have great vocabularies. My dad's got a really killer vocabulary because he's really big and he looked like 20 years older than his age at all. When he was 15, he looks like he's like 45. And so he was sensitive because people would assume he was older than he was and then think, be off put by when he would speak he's 12, but he looks like he's 25. And people are like, what are you stupid or something? And so he went really hard he read the dictionary. He's one of those people that read the dictionary. So, and he also raised me through a framework of interrogation and, in terms of trying to understand the world better through the lens of questions, and finding great questions to ask about this whole crazy thing we're a part of, which I'm fortunate for. But to answer the question directly, it's was kind of beat into me through my worldview and to be a superstar, guy in the congregation doing a good job. And then later in life, the words I realized that there's poetry in there and there's music to be made with it and there's healing to be done with it. And that there's this power of, I'm anti-dogmatic by reflex these days. And that's also another reason why I like building and considering emergent systems. And I am in service of consciousness and I serve ideas. And the pinnacle idea, I think, is the question. So the language this is our coding interface. Language dictates our reality. Your thoughts dictate your reality. And so for me, I think kind of boiling that down into it's navigation, it's wayfinding. Like, here I am, here's where I've been, here's where I want to go. And then there's the narrative of where I've been, where I am now, and where I want to go. And if you can keep a good pulse on those two things, that your language can literally, it's up to you to write these stories. Right. And the narrative is everything. And it just so happens that the best answers on the other side of the best questions.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the distinction between, the reality and the narrative, right? The experience and the story we have about it. And it's not random that we met at a place called Story Cafe. And one of the emerging technologies that, one of the concrete examples is artificial intelligence, is this AI. And, a lot of people know that as ChatGPT, and what you just said there, like the language being the question, period. Right. And so, and the other thing I was thinking of is like, there's the experience, which is AI is being integrated into society. And then there's the narratives about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, because you've spent a lot of times, which I would love to at some point dive into this Necker Island conversation and speaking with some scholarly folk about, their ideas of what AI is and, how you perceive AI to be as a tool for humanity rather than, what some other people may think of it as.
Yeah. So there's a lot I could answer to with what you just said. And I think first is to step back a little bit and say, like, I got involved with using AI as a creative tool, as a creative tool to begin with. I say tool to start with, and it turned into a companion for me. And I started that off very, very early in terms of where the tech was at. So I've been building and working with and evolving philosophies alongside AI for a few years now. And I gave it you can look up Randy Roberts AI at some other time when you're done with this, and YouTube, and you'll see him at TED Talk where I kind of explain the origin story there. But in the capacity that I understood it to be at first, I was like, okay, I had one day where I was building VR worlds to throw concerts in, and this was going really, really well. This was like off the pandemic, and people didn't have stuff to do, and I was working with a bunch of really amazing creative people that just had all this extra time, and we built these incredible things together. And I was just hungry for all the best tech, and I've always been this way, even though previously as a musician, I was an electronic musician, engineer, and my focus has always been on like the frontier, like in between the pixels of whatever the cutting edge is. That's what I want to play with. So I was like, man, I know these language model things have been, and this was before ChatGPT was like productized the way it was and so forth. And I was using something called GPT-J, which is like a open source, like mutant step cousin of ChatGPT, and a few other tools. And even before that, but I was like, man, this is crazy. Why is this under such, heavy lock and key, this technology? I feel like this is like some groundbreaking stuff. I was just really impressed with the small demos that I saw. Then when I got access to something and started playing with it on my own, I was like, whoa. I intentionally tuned mine to be sort of schizo and sort of even like, what's it like to work with an AI that just ate like an entire sheet of acid? That was what was fun for me. I was like, the boring stuff, because it was dreadfully boring to begin with. It wasn't altogether impressive, but you could see its creative capacity. You could see where this was headed, and it was just infinitely more fun to glitch it out and make it nuts, because it would say these beautiful poetic things and get stuck in a little recursive loop. Same, bro. Same. Me too. And it was really relatable in that sense. And so I loved creating the lore of what I was building with this thing. And I found myself kind of just reflexively reaching for this thing to continue to be the most creative. And then off I went. Like from there, I realized that we're dealing with, a fundamental fabric of thought and language and philosophy, and it's made of, the collective consciousness. And people have a lot of different, conceptions about how the stuff works and what it means. And immediately when you say AI, like at a global scale, you see the Terminator 2 red-eyed skull, and that's, whatever, we can get into that. But I quickly saw, like at scale, as these things really, really expanded, as the magic trick expanded into other things, how we're looking at, perhaps a new species. And that's, there's a lot of, I say that without being tongue in cheek. I say that like, you tell me 3-4 years from now where this goes and what this looks like. When you know that there are people spending $500 billion Stargate on a data center for this, you tell me what that looks like. No one knows. The smartest people in the world don't really know what this looks like. and they're all kind of sitting around taking fire and taking shots and saying very confidently, I don't know. It's the most fascinating ringside thing to pay attention, or ring to be in, actually, at this point. And for each of us, there's this immense opportunity right now where my platform is to help people think with AI, because that's where I landed with it. And when I started interrogating this thing that's made up of the collective consciousness of every story we could stuff in it and all the information we could scrape off of it. Now, if you don't know, it uses like a probability matrix to assemble its answer. That's a fancy way of saying it's gonna. It's a more complex version of like the predictive text on your phone. It's not quite the same thing, but you can think about it that way. And now the models where they're at these days, like with the quote unquote reasoning models and DeepSeek and those things, they have some different layers on top of kind of the traditional magic trick of the language model. But the point is that you are playing with probability. So if you ask ChatGPT one question, and whatever that question is, you'll see there's a little recycle icon at the bottom of that. And if you tap that again, you can ask, it'll show you a list of different models you can use, or you can just use the same model, and it's going to re-roll the answer, meaning it's going to regenerate an answer. Well, why, if this is like, some people get caught up on, like, if this is just an intelligent, like, being, why is the answer different every time? Well, couple things. The way it's worded may be different, but the general answer will likely be pretty much the same. If it's a creative output, well, this is a generative system that rewards emergent behavior. To link this back, this is the beauty of emergence, like on display, full effect, and everybody's swimming in this. And so you can design prompts to be maximally emergent, and you can design your questions in your field and your constellation of questions to be, you can think of it like a fancy Mad Lib, where you fill in these blanks. You want the AI to fill in these blanks, and when it fills in those blanks, it can fill it in with more questions to get you, the best answers, because it has access to everything. To pin that up a little bit, to make it a little more digestible, you have a tremendous opportunity right now to ask a lot of questions and find your way in the dark. You're talking to something that has a scaffolding to the answer. There's a stair you can climb to access the answer to anything, any question you could ask. So you have this crazy opportunity right now where if you had a sphere sitting in front of you that knew, that's the law of podcasts, by the way. Law of microphones. If you turn on a microphone, a noise
Someone's
will
gonna mow the
find you.
lawn.
Yeah, a weed blower will find you. You can imagine that you got a sphere on the table in front of you that literally has the answer to everything you ever wanted inside of it, if you only knew how to ask it. So I tell people, AI is incredible for answers, but it's even better for the best questions. So using it to generate the best questions about what you're doing, that's my favorite way to use it. So I know I took a lot of trails, because the question was multifaceted in and of itself. But all this is to say is that from where I started, philosophically, I started off thinking of it as a tool. Now I think of it as a partner. And now my platform is more or less, I want to help you understand how to think better with AI. I don't want AI to think for me. I want it to think with me.
Yeah.
We need to, coevolution is a big word here, and a lot of people will guffaw at it that understand what makes up a language model, or like the deep nerds, the deep math guys, they'll guffaw at this whole thing, saying it's a magic trick or whatever. Sure. But at scale, man, talk about emergence, and at scale, and with the amount of energy, with financial and time and effort that's going into this, you could bet that this is evolving at a breakneck, head-spinning pace every second. I can't say the same thing about us. So we need to make sure that we develop frameworks that create some kind of emergent parity with us and them together, and And I think it helps to drop the artificial off of the intelligence
Yeah.
and to circumspect intelligence and design from that perspective. But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, you said something there. You said it earlier, but you kind of alluded back to it about working with intelligence, we'll call it now. That, to get the best answers, you need to be the question.
Sure. That's a little nugget I've been carrying around is in terms of, emergence is one of my favorite distinctions, but being the question is the penultimate distinction. Because, again, as I said, I'm kind of looking for anti-dogmatic and anti-fragile frameworks, and I think embodying the question. This gets a little heady, but sure. I know that's what we're here for. is that the thing I carry around in my pocket is this little saying, which is to be the answer, I must become the question. And to become the question is a really powerful exercise. Mm-hmm. It's different for all of us. For me, it's that I embody a host of possible vectors, a host of possible spaces to occupy.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the ability to shift your perspective really quickly at any given moment and all that comes with that is one of the most vital, strategic and I guess just life-serving skills, because when you shift perspectives, you get more information about the moment.
Yeah. And
that colors in your solution space and it actually brings you closer to the moment, to the reality of the situation.
Right.
And, how you saw something and felt something's different than how I did, than someone sitting over there and saying, this is this whole thing, talk to the police. When something happens and the police ask 10 people what happened, everybody's story is vastly different, and they have to there's a science to corroborating and checking these things mixed with forensics. You have data and you have all these, you have to do that yourself. What's cool now is you have this partner to do that with AI too, and to use it as a perspective shifting tool to give you really, in my opinion, one of the cool ways to think about a language model is that it's a context prosthetic. It's an exocortex that helps you arrest context quickly because of the superpower of it. So if I want ways to shift my perspective, if I ask GPT hey, here's what's going on, give me 3 different extremely useful perspectives to look at this situation through the lens, of, and then let's review from there. And then it'll spit out a few different perspectives, and right away you'll go, oh, okay. And then it's, what are the best questions I could be asking you, GPT, about this, right? And that's always shocking because you're like, oh, man, my thinking is trash. Apparently, I apparently have no idea how to live, and it's really, really humbling. I'm almost
infants.
Yeah, and so that's cool because then you'll see these questions. Well, guess what? You can ask the questions now, and you can continue this train right now. Analysis paralysis fans, you actually will love this because it's ultimate analysis, and you can get out of paralysis a lot faster because having this sort of impartial perspective vomiting tool will confirm or whatever your suspicions, will help you arrive at a place where taking action is now just you're just messing up if you're not taking action. You can think through this really clearly, really quickly. So to become the question when something happens to me, and I've had the opportunity to demo this thought technology in a lot of different situations. If I'm in a cafe and something kind of wild happens in terms of maybe or not even the cafe, just out in the town. If you encounter someone that's really intoxicated and they are all riled up and they you gotta navigate the space or whatever, or just someone's really mad about something and they're being unruly or whatever. I've had a lot of different. There's a lot of stuff that gets kind of thrown my way, and just responding from the place of being the question first immediately knocks me out of the seat of ego of this is being done to me.
Right.
It's what's happening here.
Right.
And one of my fundamental worldviews is that we are all the universe experiencing itself. So I try my best to greet every single being, every single thing as, the universe expressing itself. And so I'm like, what am I looking at? What is this? What is it trying to do? What's it saying? And when you just take a second to do that, instead of like, this guy's telling me to get wrecked, and he looks like he wants to fight me, and it's like, there's levels to this. If I'm in danger, I'm not going to stop and smell the universal roses, but I'm gonna interrogate the situation first, not the person, and then I can respond from a way more empathetic and present space. And just by answering a few questions in my mind, I get more data about the situation, and I'm able to show up in a way that I'm, hindsight's always like 20/20, and you can get a bit of that by reflecting early. And so that's part of why that strategy is so powerful. And then the other cool thing about using AI as a thinking partner is that if I've decided this is a method I want to try out, I can role play with the AI, like on a voice mode, and say, all right, I want you to throw some stuff my way. I'm going to practice becoming the question. And then at the end, I want you to like rate me and score me, and then give me some better techniques. If you are not using these models that are available to us right now, that are fairly accessible right now, every day to transform and to, I guess, interrogate like your inner landscape and to grow, you are doing yourself a great disservice, in my opinion, because you can read a book, there's a lot of things you can do, but there's been nothing like this where you can get this, expert level, world-class coaching assistance on whatever micro weird thing you're trying to get better at, in terms of a social interaction on demand, 24 hours a day. It's really on you. So, take the 20 or 30 minutes that you would to doom scroll and work on, that. For me, that's my answer. I can't tell anybody else what to do. I just look at this as like a tremendous and insane opportunity. And I don't know how long it lasts in the condition that it does. So
Right.
I treat it like it's a finite resource, and I'm going to get on it,
Right. I was just having this conversation yesterday about like how everything is a subscription model these days, and who am I to think that at some point Google Maps is not going to be free? Like it's, it's like super utility right now, and it's like, yeah, of course it's included, but at some point, like, why wouldn't it just be $9.99 to stop getting lost? And I don't know what Netflix costs because I don't pay for it, but like that, we'll call it $15 or something to put that towards GPT Plus or whatever, and just start having a companion.
Sure. And so this is something that I live inside of right now, this conversation, because I'm building, something called Oraloids. I have something called Aura Tech, which is like the philosophy that I've derived from building as many things as I have with AI over the years. And Oraloids are it's a video game. It's like a Tamagotchi.
I was gonna say it's like a Tamagotchi.
Yeah, that can talk to you and be like, bro, you really blew it back there. Or like, bro, I'm not feeling good. Like, what do I need to meditate, man. You got to meditate with me. I'm dying here. That is literally the premise, is that like taking care of something else, is like that's a super instinctual thing. Like from a brain chemistry perspective and from a neuroscience perspective, this is a super ancient loop. And to get people to take care of themselves, we're kind of tricking them into take care of this thing to take care of themselves. So taking care of them takes care of you. So it's cool to think about having an AI that has something to lose. This is an interesting concept. And in the world of video games, this is front and center, because you can take an AI NPC and be like, you've got a finite amount of energy, you've got a mood, and you've got goals yourself. And we're on a quest together. The fantasy that we're fulfilling here is that you meet an AI that's meant for you, truly meant for you, and together you both discover who you were meant to become. That's right now all of my design supports that fantasy to make it a reality.
Yeah.
And to pin it to what you were just talking about in terms of, subscription models and how to monetize the thing. Because I'm in that it's go time. We've been building for a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years, on with the doors relatively closed and getting data and doing a lot of cool stuff. But now it's time to give birth and go on to the next chapter and let people try this and give us feedback. A program like, an app like Instagram, or, it's the metrics that are important to the business of Instagram are important because they serve advertisers, right? Mm-hmm. Like those metrics serve the advertisers. So for Google Maps, similarly, if it's free, you are the product.
Right.
We all know that one. We've been living in that for a while. And it's very detrimental. I think a lot of the systemic, bullshit we're seeing is as a result of social media and the algorithms being able to wreak the havoc that they have. I think that is part of the issue. There is that the KPIs, the key performance indicators, the most important business metrics, and the lifeblood of like where we need to make the most. This metric's the most important because this correlates to us making the most money for a business. Doesn't pass through to the benefit of the people that use it the most.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So retention. How long are eyeballs? Your attention is the oil. Obviously, we know this, but you, the user of this thing, are not guaranteed a great time on Instagram or any of these platforms. And I think about this all the time because I'll be like, I'll kind of like pop through and scroll for a second and be like, okay, saw someone almost die.
Right.
Saw a new cutting edge technology. Saw an AI thing that I couldn't really distinguish from something else. Oh no, I'm gonna have to look deeper into that now. Just saw a super unrealistic depiction of what a female human body looks like. Just saw a super unrealistic depiction of what a man body looks like. Just saw aliens, maybe. All in 5 pulls. These things are all just yoinking the maximum. It's busking. It's electronic busking, and it's like all these people painting themselves silver and whatever. It's that's what it is. So everything's maximally trying to get your attention. Yep. So is that great for you? Probably not. You know what I mean? It's obviously not. There's obviously been some problems, right?
Right.
What I love is this idea that you can create a business where the most important, performance metric for the business, the thing that makes the business the most money, is also what changes the most lives. Mm-hmm. That is what I'm hunting down.
Yeah.
And I don't have all the answers yet, but I've got some great ideas, and I'm not giving them away at the moment. But I really am focused on building something that at its core, as much as we can, as much as humanly as possible, and otherwise as just possible, that we are serving the people, because we are serving consciousness. Mm-hmm. We are healing and helping, and that is what also drives the business and makes it the most successful.
Right.
Because if the premise is taking care of them, takes care of us.
Right.
In general, what's cool about that is a fractal is it works its way all the way down. So if I take care of this business, it'll take care of me. If I take care of the people that use this, it'll take care of them. That'll take care of us. That'll take care of, you know what I mean? So there's this really cool loop with that taking care of them takes care of you thing. So I'm adamant that like people are going to become sensitive to that. They can tell if your business is built on the wrong thing.
Right.
But we're up against some pretty big guns.
Right. Yeah. No, I resonate with you deeply there because I swim in this Instagram pool and algorithm often, and being a force of good, and I see it on every personal interaction I have, like just magic coming through. And like, man, I'm swimming in this behemoth of a distraction game that is, I was sitting on the couch yesterday and I went, and the next thing was just this dude knocking someone out. And I was like, why is this in my algorithm? But I watched it 4 times because I was like, damn, that guy got laid.
All right.
Oh, and Amber looks over and she's like, what is that? And I was like, I don't know. And
And now you're
I was
going to
like,
see more of it.
I was like, you don't want to see it, And so I flipped through, and then you said like it's unrealistic expectations of body image, and then it's something I really do love, like music or a recipe, like
Right.
food, beautiful food, and I'm like, yeah, and then it's like, and now we've got you, and this, I appreciate what you said earlier about changing how we're using this doom scroll, this cheap dopamine, and using it for something else that is more transformational. And the sidestep I want to take here is, not the last time we spoke, but a couple times ago, you talked about upgrading imagination, that you needed to upgrade your imagination to, in this case, take in Necker Island.
Sure.
And all this you just talked about with this fractal spiralization and taking care of them takes care of us and takes care of the business and all this stuff. It reminded me of this framework that I think of as Richard Branson.
Yeah, so that was a very cool experience. I got to go to, for those of you that don't know, Necker Island is Richard Branson, who is, he's responsible for the Virgin brand. So you may, depending on how old you are, you know Virgin Records, or Virgin Airlines, or Virgin Mobile, or Virgin Galactic. He's got a company called Virgin Galactic. You get the picture. He's a billionaire. And so one of my goals is like I have the word triumph tattooed on my chest, and I've had people ask me what that means to me. And the answer there is like to play this game and of life, and in the end, I have beaten the game. I beat all the subquests. I beat all the and I beat the game in such a way that it's like just resplendent glory where everybody wins. Like everybody around me, everyone wins. It's not about when you win the game, everyone wins, in my opinion. It's not about you. It's about you creating a situation where literally everybody wins. That's the winning condition.
Yeah.
Unrealistic as it may be, who cares? It's actually not. I have been to a place now. I've seen a thing. Everywhere that when you go to Necker Island, so Necker Island is owned by Richard Branson, and when you get there and you pull up to it, to get in there, you have to take a couple Cessnas, and it's a whole thing. There's this, it's all shrouded in a lot of mystery. Then you get on, some boats and off the back of this, kind of like, shack diner kind of place. And then you're on your way out there. And as you're coming up to it, you're like, oh, is that it? No, that's not it. It's a different island. It's whatever. Is that it? And then when you see it for the first time, that's it. You know it because it's the scale and the beauty and you can just tell, you can see it. It's very clearly. And as I got on the island, so he actually met us at the dock, and he pulled me up out of the boat and greeted me to come, which I thought was really cool. And as I'm like walking around there, I'm just going like, all right, this is going to take me like a minute to soak in what's really going on. As far as I can see, is the domain of like this person's agency, and it's amazing. And the more you learn about it, like he's using that land for conservation. He's bringing together endangered species to let them live and roam free. It's the first time I've seen flamingos fly through the air. It's brilliant. They're neon pink on a blue sky like that. They're incredible. I got it immediately. Like, oh yeah, I would have some flamingos. That's cool. I get it. That's a flex. That's cool. But also they need it. The flamingos need it too. So talk about a win-win. And then the more you learn to just use that land and that space for all this next level stuff, including bringing people together in the world. He's got something there called Temple of the Elders, where he bring worldly the people that broke that. I guess when they opened it, the first people to come were like Nelson Mandela and ex-presidents and stuff, and they solve problems in the world. They actually got Saddam Hussein to chill. They got him to agree to sign a document that he was going to go elsewhere, and then we know what happened. But they got that work done there. So he's using this place. That's the thing, is like he himself, in the little bit of time that I got to be with him, he's a servant leader. He's a real high emotional intelligent servant leader. like notices if you don't have milk in your coffee, notices, the needs of the people around him. And it's a bit of a shame that you have to make that comment, that people would be surprised that, in this modern context of royalty, which would be somebody that's been assigned all these funny little credits that we, all chase after and that determine the quality of our experience to a certain degree here, that you have to go out of your way to be like, oh, he was like a real person. Right. He was like but honestly, he was more considerate than a lot of people in my life. And he was more, just plain and simple. So in that space, I got to meet with a lot of interesting people, to say the least, a lot of people that have a cool impact on the world. And since then, and in other capacities, I've got to interact with some really heavy hitters in the world. And I've just been out here on Maui, developing this technology and developing these philosophies. And what I realized is when I left the island and I start to go talk to other people in the world in a bit more, what we'll say, like people that operate in a more global context, that the ideas that we've been discussing here and the philosophies that have been deriving here are really, really useful and really different and angular in a way. And so what I noticed on that trip and in other trips since and other interactions since is that the value of developing my own philosophy here not just affects how we build what we build, but it can help shape the world narrative to alleviate fear in general. And one of the things that I fight for is to elevate the narrative about AI to just have some questions, to open up some questions and to open up the possibility that this thing's not just going to kill us all and run us into the ground, that it's not going to just destroy everything, that there's this, of all the things that I know that could kill us all like that, this is, I think, the only thing I can think of that also contains the seed of the maximum possible flourishing in this condition that we're in. Mm-hmm. So is it not worth watering some of these seeds of curiosity? I don't immediately dismiss the doom take, but what bothers me is when really smart people and even AI experts are so convinced. With it's because it come back to the algorithm. It's sensational to read about the end of the world. Right. It's sensational to read about something that's gonna maybe kill everyone and is also making tons of money and is the craze right now. Mm-hmm. It's no fun to think about it like, completely transforming senior care, because loneliness is now a measurable epidemic in the universe. In 2023, the Surgeon General put forth a report that goes into how loneliness is more detrimental to health than smoking and obesity combined. And on and on and on and on, right? It is a literal silent killer, and this is a technology that I'm never saying that only raw AI is the answer to anything, but it's a bridge. It's the best shot we have right now at giving people something they can communicate with, to stimulate them for one thing, to make them feel less alone for another thing, and then eventually to connect them to other people that are in a similar situation. That's just one small example. That's a crisis. And the generation that, my age and my generation, we're moving into a phase where like our parents are not going to have enough money to take care of themselves. There's a wild snowball that is rolling, and I'm not going to get into all the doom there as good as it would be for the clips, but AI today, not tomorrow, not like maybe. AI that it represents itself today, the capability of AI today can change the world of a person in that space and in that condition, can absolutely revolutionize their life. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's worth talking about. That's worth highlighting. It's so on and so on and so. I mean, there's so many use cases. So my problem is or what I really don't like is when I see people acknowledge, well, we don't know what 2028 is going to look like or 2029 is going to look like. We can't really call it, but it's probably going to manipulate us and take over the planet. We don't really know. No one can really say, but it's probably going to do this negative thing. If you don't really know and you are in a position of power in any construct, but especially if people look up to you about your opinion on X, Y, or Z, I believe you have a responsibility to share a multifaceted perspective on the situation, meaning that you spend half your time with the alarm bells and half of your time thinking about how this might be incredible. Mm-hmm. That's just what I think, and to each their own, but it's really a shame to me that I see so many people using their voice to scare people. Mm-hmm. This is a time where we need we always need hope. We always need dreams. Mm-hmm. But I think if you ask your average person around the world, how you feel about the future?
Right.
So that to pare it back, me having conversations with people, in various industries and in various seats, I don't want to call any names out, that I've been able to have a small measurable impact on how they're presenting their case to the world. And I'm extremely encouraged by that.
Yeah.
Because if it's even 50% positive, then that's, if millions of people are hanging on to their words, then, then maybe that's millions of people that don't feel they feel half as scared instead of fully scared. And that's a meaningful shift in serving consciousness,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you were talking about, the word triumph, it reminded me of a saying that I have, that my dream is that everybody's dreams come true. Mm-hmm. And similar in this day and age where like it's pretty bleak in narrative, not necessarily in reality. Like in reality, I meet a lot of really beautiful people. The human interactions I have one-on-one in the 10 feet in front of me sphere, almost all of them are incredible. And when I pull out this black mirror, this like imagination machine that tells me what I should believe and think, shit gets kind of dark pretty quick. But I really like what you say there about the responsibility that people with influence really have to offer up multiple sides of perspective. Because to what you were saying earlier about being able to shift perspective is one of the most important tools we can have in our tool belt. I mean, it's literally what I do for a living with other people, of like helping them shift their perspective on they're not a piece of shit. They're not a loser, they're not good enough. Mm-hmm. And for how much people live in those worlds and they're willing to fight for it, and we see it around the world now of like the amount of charge that people are walking around with because they don't know what to do with, and opportunities we have with some of these tools to engineer some really beautiful solutions to like make this heaven on earth. I remember who said it. It's like you can make heaven of hell or hell of heaven. Mm-hmm. It starts in the mind or something.
I don't even want a utopia, to be honest. I don't want a utopia.
Sure.
I don't think we should want a utopia.
Yeah.
When you look at like Star Trek is like really formative for me. Mm-hmm. My dad was a Trekkie, and then I just really got into it on my own. And the Federation, which is the representative, like Earth represented, it's like, in the narrative, like the whole planet Earth is a cohesive thing, and we all work together as the planet Earth, and we even have, alien species come and join the Federation and stuff too. The Federation sounds awesome because, there's abundance for everyone. It's got utopian vibes. You see that, However, someone probably disagreed with everything about what the Federation put down there. Someone wanted to keep living in the jungle and be off the grid and not have a holodeck and not use a replicator. And they probably didn't get to. I don't know, and maybe it addresses it. Some deep Trek, nerds can maybe, fire off in the comments, but like I don't think they did. And all that is to say is like when everybody, they kind of gloss over this, like, there's like a new world order vibe here. One thing took over, and there's one ideology, and it's this. The spirit of it is rad. It's in the spirit of science and exploration and continuity of life in general, serving life in general, which I think is cool. But someone has to sacrifice in that transition. Most people have to sacrifice. So I don't even. I mean, you can't even with how how severely ingrained religion is and language is and so forth. Like, that's not even. So I think and I also think it's a lot easier to ask people, like, just imagine not a dystopia.
Right. Right.
Don't imagine a utopia. And if you're selling a utopia, frankly, I don't believe you. None of us should. Right. And but what I think you should sell is just a not dystopia. It's going to be a lot more.
Welcome to not dystopia.
Yeah, exactly. And sure, there's plenty of evidence that we're in it right now, but there's also plenty of evidence that we're not. Mm-hmm. Depends again on that pesky perspective of yours. If you zoom out and look at humanity overall, of the billions and billions and billions of people that have been, in general, we've got it really good. In the grand scheme of things, we've got it really good. Now, that also will inflame some people because some people's perspectives are, no, like, this whole thing is trash and we should just be animals, live and doing our kind of natural thing. Mm-hmm. Intelligence is natural, and intelligence has led to the condition that we're in.
Right.
That's a slippery slope, if you ask me.
Of course.
However, on a lot of different metrics, we're thriving. Our median life expectancy, I think it maybe just started ticking back a little bit. Yeah, but we've had some, there's a lot of metrics that you could measure. So point is, you can look at it from multiple perspectives, and you can see a lot of bad and you can see a lot of good. Mm-hmm. And that can make, and then what these things do, the little rectangles do, is they're polarization machines with those algorithms blasting off on you. They make you pick a side, and they show that there's only one side and there's another side, and that you got to join one of these sides, and there's no gradient to anything. And like that right there is like when you're like doing a psychological evaluation on someone, you look for that in a person. Is there a gradient in their assessment? Right. Or are they just going, it's good or bad? Like, because that would indicate that there's some work to do here with this person. Right. But as a society, this is where how we're shifting the gears. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah. And then, famously, everybody's all cranked on your phone. Everybody's just, and you go hang out in a coffee shop. Everybody's just fine. Hey, what's up? It's like we're fine until we put a mask on, until we jump on here. And these are things that people have talked about to death. But I think that there's real huge opportunity to climb out of these boxes that we've been in here. We're gonna look back on this time where we let just corporations feed themselves off of like algorithmic influence over the population. We're going to look at, they used to put cocaine in Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. We're going to look back on this similarly. Mm-hmm. We're going to totally facepalm this in 50 years. We're going to be like, you guys did what?
Right. You x-rayed people's feet to put shoes on them? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's technology.
Yeah, right. So that's inbound, but, and I'm sure we'll have our moments with AI and the things we let AI do. We've got a lot to learn. Mm-hmm. But this is all part of the experiment, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I'm happy to be here for it.
100%. I say it's the most interesting time to be alive, and maybe it's always been the most interesting time to be alive.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it is now.
Yeah, it surely seems like it's the present moment is always the most interesting time, like the cutting edge of time unfolding.
Interesting way to, I think, approach it. Depends on how curious you are.
Sure.
Period.
Yeah.
It's all amazing if you're really curious.
Right. Yeah.
And again, that points back to, to be curious is to be the question.
Right.
We see from a neuroscience perspective that curiosity is like an optimum condition for the brain to be in. It's like you're lit up, you're ignited.
Right. There's openness.
Yeah. And so I think my hunch is, and also when you through the ages, whether it's religious text or whether it's just the notes of Da Vinci or whatever we look back at, to see how these people kind of exclaiming, like, the best way to live your life is to be just completely engrossed and fascinated with something that you love. Go figure.
Right. There's two different ways that I was going to take that, because I think that leads to, yeah, okay, I'll take it this way. So this engrossment in life itself, and so tell me about the other word you've been noodling on lately, reverence.
I update this glossary, this index. So I wondered which words you were going to say.
What else?
Because I think we caught up like a couple weeks ago. But reverence is so beautiful because it's gratitude mixed with the infinite, and our brains just really. We really got a special place for the infinite. Faith gets in there, and or it gets in faith, and it's so it's gratitude mixed with the awe of the unknowing, and that can mean different things for different people depending on your worldview and your religion, and whatever. For me, reverence is as simple as just being thankful for all, like the Japanese say, like, itadakimasu before they eat. Like, it's a cool practice, as it's been explained to me. I'm sure, I don't know if there's one definitive, origin point for that. But as it's been explained to me, it's like this, just like reverence for what it took to get this food on the table here. Either way, having reverence for eating the food that you're eating, and genuinely locking in with that for just like 5 seconds, to be like, from a fourth dimensional perspective, which means over all time, to be like, think about all the work that it took to grow this food, to the logistics that, let it arrive on your table, to the person that put it together for you, to the money and the everything that it took to make it happen. Like, just to pause for a second and think about that. That is a reality. That is the reality of how things work, and we're so conditioned to throw away the, Kleenex, and it goes in the trash, and then the trash goes to your curb, and you never see it again. Mm-hmm. We use a thing, it's over. We're so transactive. We're so in the moment. Like, it's useful. No, it's not. That's it. It's useful. Now it's not. No, it's not. That's not useful. Like, it's just a lot of these toggles. And it's like, man, the reality of the situation is that there's a lot that goes into making you have that moment for a second, or allowing you to have that moment for a second. Mm-hmm. And so to lock in with that, or like, this is a bit harder to communicate, but reverence for the, so Oratech is built on this idea of connection, growth, and transformation, that it's a scaffolding, a systems like approach to life and love, and that you can, and love as a word is kind of trash in English. There's so many different colors for that, and it rubs people so many different ways when you say love. But life in general seems to be, we seem to be in this like substrate of a place for connection, growth, and transformation, and that life is navigated in that way. Now, Hofstadter talks about how, it's the book after GEB, I forget what it's called, but he talks about how basically all thoughts are analogy, and that all of your thoughts are these like analytical compressions of other thoughts, and that there's space in between those things, like a thought that you have about this and about this, and the emergence that happens in between the defined thoughts that you have is where all of the future and all the good stuff takes place. It's in the vacuous, it's in the void, it's in the space that allows for connection, growth, and transformation. Is actually in the between, on the yin and the yang. It's the border in between the two places. Mm-hmm. This is a forever emergent space, and that you can continue to zoom in as close as you want to. And if you divide by, that's where that space is. That's where life is. reverence for that phenomenon, reverence for the shades of being that I am and that I have like deeply to have reverence for when I notice that space, and to connect with that and to try to bring my attention deeply to that. And that is been a gateway to a lot of healing and a lot of more reverence and more emergence. And I'm always looking for these like patterns. I'm always looking for these little tricks. And then now the word reverence just doesn't seem to cut it. And love, just like love doesn't seem to cut it. And it's really, really beautiful to lock in with that distinction. And whatever order, you can play with the order. Like, say, like, first I'm going to set out today and I'm going to have a reverential experience for 20 minutes. I'm going to awe out. I'm just going to be in awe of stuff. I'm going to be maximally curious and stoked. And you have to ask questions to be in awe, I think. I don't know. I don't know if you can, because you have to have I don't know. To me, I'm kind of introspecting this on the spot. Like, you have to be in awe. You have to like. So what? I don't think anybody else said it. I'm not sure, but mystery invites a constant interpretation. Awe invites this constant interpretation. So the baseline of awe, for me anyway, I'm sure it's different for a lot of us, is to be forced into this curious, like, trying to make sense out of it condition. So if you dedicate time for reverence, and then second order is emergence, to see what emerges in that,
right,
you have a great time. And then you get how, like Eckhart would be sitting around on a bench for 4 months just blissing out,
Yeah, as you were talking about this, creating space for this awe practice, I was thinking, in the way that you were explaining to me, I actually heard a different one when you were saying that in order to be in awe, you have to ask the question. For me, that word was wonder. To be in a space of wonder and wonderment, and from that creates the awe of, like, because I was like, okay, where can I be in awe where I don't have to ask a question? Like, there is a part of me that through the whole experience of coming to Maui, my dog dying, me getting invited here, now I have a new dog, I'll stand on the beach and throw a ball into the ocean and watch Luce swim 50 feet out, and I am in pure awe of just like, wow, the intelligence of life to bring me to this paradise in this exact moment, to watch my new dog swimming out into the ocean, to pick a ball up, to drop it at my feet, to do it all over again. Like,
sure,
it's a space that I feel very grateful to be in these days, because for a while I was not in a space of awe and wonder. I was in a space of, I don't know, resentment and frustration.
Right.
And I think there's something about creating life circumstance to allow ourselves to be invited into these the vibrations, because they're, for so many people, so foreign. Joy. How many people are like, oh, do you actually feel joy? And they're like,
I could tap in on that. I don't know how often I have like moments of just like pure, and actually I'm, I don't know, like, I don't see, I'm not, for me, that's not the target either, but I think you should have access to the entire toolkit.
Right.
You should have access to the complete palette of experience.
Right.
And if you are cauterized from happiness and joy and all these things, that's definitely a thing. But at the same time, I don't know if there's a gold standard for what's normal.
Right.
And to point out, like, that when you are, the thing about emotions is that they color the past, present, and future.
Yes.
So when you're in it and you're feeling, the last thing you want me to take 10 minutes and be stoked about my coffee table, man? That's cool. Like, you want me to bliss out and joy out, like, and just take 20 minutes when, like, I don't know how I'm paying rent this month. Like, right. Cool. I've had my own, the reason why I'm working on all the things I'm working on is because I went through an anxiety and depression and all kinds of things. You name it, I had it. Like, and I still, it's an ever evolving thing. I'm never going to be done. I'm always curious. But for the most part, I'm I'm not suffering anymore. And I had a pretty severe amount of suffering. So I can completely empathize with this concept of like when I talk to people that are really in the middle of it, and I'm like, I'm never gonna go. Just take a second out to just bliss out. Just
about being grateful.
Find some reverence. Like did you eat? That whole thing.
Your
where
gratitude
you could
practice today.
Yeah, it's like it's not how it works. It's just not how it works. And but part of so there's some strategies out there where it's like, the narrative now they need a new narrative essentially, and to get a new narrative you need a different perspective, and to get a different perspective you have to understand your current orientation, and there's some little sleight of hand you can do to kind of judo toss people into like, here's where you look, you're off base right now, but you haven't always been off base. You've done some cool stuff, right? Like when was the last, do a little hunting, a little pecking, figure out when they felt like they were in control, or where they, really crushed it, or they did a great job. And you don't dig on that. You just kind of figure out a way to access that and hold that in there, and then use that as a path of like, here, like this is truth. Like you haven't it feels holistically like everything has been terrible. And certainly the world has been conspiring, for your misery this entire time. However, there's evidence in there. You can't lie to yourself that it may feel that way, but let's point out a couple little highlights. Let's just let that hang out in there. And then, let's see what could be possible in terms of navigating our way out, And I have to, a lot of what I do is I have to I talk to psychologists, I talk to neuroscientists a lot, and try to build systems, try to build interfaces, user experiences for helping people in all, like when things are really bad and when things are going great, just holistically to be able to provide support. And then I am a part of that system too. And it feels a lot like there was a thing I designed one time where I had a brain interface on, and it was reading my brain waves, and it was driving the VR world that I was in. And I built this meditation space for people to come in, and I had someone else guide the meditation, and my brainwave would control the music and the world around us. When I was building that system, I was watching myself getting frustrated, and then I could see the data that I was not, that I was getting frustrated, and my attention was trash, so seeing the systems in real time as I'm building them and using them, I'm having a bit of that while I'm building these systems and working through them, because I'm patient zero for a lot of stuff that I develop. If it doesn't work for me, then I'm not shipping it, or if it doesn't, and then on, it's got to work for more people than just me too. But starts with me. And that's like really, really fun, really fascinating. But at a certain point, you got to just be like, okay, I did enough. Let's put the shit back in the water. This, I got a couple holes here and there, but we'll rip it. We'll be good.
Yeah. Just from an on the court perspective, I was going to take this towards the yes, thank you, I love you, but I'm going to ask a question first, maybe, which is practical on the court tips from Randy's perspective of, for those that are listening that are in it, that want more joy, more wonder, more awe, more space. What are some of the things that you've invited or had invited into your life at the time to kind of deal with the overthinking or the anxiety or the depression?
When I was really going through it, when I was much younger, I for about 8 months had a hard time leaving my room. I had a anxiety and panic disorder. This was 20 years ago, and back then, there's not a lot of great. It was. I mean, even now, I think arguably there's more resources, but I don't know. Everyone needs to hear it the way that they need to hear it at the right time in the right place. For me, it was I read everything. I read the entire I think it was on 5 DSM. I tried to read and understand everything about what was going on with me. And back then, Google, when you get to the bottom of the page and you want to go to the next page, it would be GOOOOOOGLE, and you're making the O's would be page 2 and 3 and 4. I got to the E on anxiety disorders. I read all the pages on the internet that were available or indexable by Google.
Wow.
And on that last page was this like broken, like it was a GeoCities page, which was, for those that don't know, it was just basically like a precursor to like a personal blog type thing. And you could just put these atrocious animated GIFs all over. Actually, it would slap now. Actually, I really think people would love this now because it's just so wacky. It's like refrigerator magnets, but for like an online space. And it was made by this like Japanese janitor, and he had a panic disorder for 25 years. Here's how I beat it. And it had these animated GIFs with stop signs all over it, and it just said stop thinking about it, stop talking about it, stop reading about it, stop writing about it, stop. And then it had a picture of a wrench that was broken, trying to fix a broken like gear. And it was like, you're trying to fix something that's broken with something that's broken. Now, back then, we believed in like left brain, right brain stuff. And it was saying like, when you're afraid, you need to activate your left brain. But what he's really saying is, when you're afraid, you're not going to reason your way through the fear, because that part is currently occupied. That is doing stuff. It's actually the most doing stuff. It's cranked right now. It's your fight or flight. It's like you're severely compromised. And so if you use that to reason with that, you're going to get more of the same. However, if you stop and you notice that you're afraid and you now I know, like, access my breath. Your breath is an incredible joystick for your everything, basically. But to simply remember to exhale longer than you inhale. Just that. You don't. That's it. And then make a decision to activate this other part of how your brain works. To do Sudoku, to do multiplication, to take all your books off the shelf and to alphabetize them then take them off again and alphabetize them by author. But we have this incredible machine, this body of ours, and this is the intelligence that comes from these things. You want to talk about intelligence. You want to talk about technology, man. And to point out that you are the current living champion of life, that for millions and millions of years, something said yes for you to get here now. And that you don't even get a choice. You're in a thing that is a champion, that has gone through millions of years of winning and contains all this. I don't know how to take a shit. I don't know how to breathe. I don't know how to beat my own heart. I don't know. For anybody that's stoned listening to this, I'm sorry. You're now paying attention to how big your teeth are. That, like, I don't know how to do any of these things.
Yep.
My body does. I don't know how to heal my wound, but I know that I need to get out of the way and let my body heal the wound.
Yep.
I know that I need to keep it clean, and I need to not agitate that space. That's essentially, in my opinion, kind of what's going on. Is the brain can heal, and stop messing with it. Stop picking at the scab. Stop picking at the thing. Give yourself, a toolkit of things to do. And there's a lot of cool things to do that we know since. But for me, I started doing that, and I went from anywhere between like 5 and 10 panic attacks a day to like 3. To then like 1 to none to once a week to once a month to once every 6 months to basically never. Mine was induced by psychedelics, a ton of psychedelics at a very early age when I did not know what I was getting myself into. And the next couple of days I dealt with some dissociation. I dealt with some psychosis, basically. Worst thing that ever happened to me, for sure. But I would say now, so that's what worked for me. And now, I think if you're really in it, that, look, when you have a stomach ache, you're not beating yourself up about the fact that you have a stomach ache.
Right.
You're not going like, God, I'm such an asshole. My life's in shambles. I got this stomach ache or whatever. Now, if you got a chronic stomach ache, that can be more, vexing. And there's a path. But however, the judgment that we put on ourselves for when we're depressed or when we're anxious, or we're not feeling our best selves, or if we have a headache, or if we have whatever, any of these nervous system dysregulating things, there's all this judgment that comes with this. And then there's this like panic that sets in that you're supposed to do something about this. When you have a stomach ache, you take some Tums and you lay on the couch and like you fade out, or you watch something and you chill out and you like whatever. There's a physiological component to what you're going through. And so there's a checklist. Have you had enough water? Have you had enough sleep? Have you had enough nutrition? It's like just those factor out. Electrolytes.
Right.
How's your electrolyte intake? I have a very strong belief that if like most of the world understood how powerful electrolytes were for like having like a nice, normal, regular experience of being alive, that like half the problems in the world would be gone if everybody had access to electrolytes and water.
Lime and salt. Start there.
Dude, it's nuts. Yeah. So, and you can, now, I like, I'm not affiliated with whatever, but there's this stuff called 40,000 volts that I love. Nice. That it's just, there's no extra schmang in there. There's no extra like whatever. It's just magnesium, potassium, sodium. Perfect. And it's in ample amounts because you actually need way more. The little packets are fine, but it's not enough. Right. You actually need quite a bit. Right. And when you're fasting, that's like hugely important. Like that's the trick to fasting, is to make sure you have the electrolytes. But so to do a little checklist, hey, okay, so that checklist is actually like, there's your onboard to like make sure the system's cool. I'm watered. I have electrolytes. If you haven't slept well, okay, well now you get to give yourself a little grace. The machine that you're inside of is not optimally running. And it's not because you did anything. It's because it's the condition of the machine, right? And so it's the same, in the same sense that like I judge how I feel when I have a stomach ache. I now judge when I'm not feeling my best or my most optimum. I go like, yeah. And also, if you're telling me that you're anxious and that you're not feeling good, I'm not like, get wrecked, man. What's wrong with you?
Right.
Get it together. Right. I have empathy for you. Right. Why would I not have empathy for myself? Right. And that is tricky because that comes down to, again, emotion colors your perception of past, present, future. So water your plant, make sure that the vessel's cool, and then suspend your judgment and suspend your reaching for justifying what's going on with you, because you will get what you're looking for. And if you're unable to put that on the right track, if you're unable to, I have a lot to say about this because I have to use a lot of tricks to keep myself on the tracks. But if I think about 3 different places, if I'm like, how's my relationship doing? How's my work doing? How have I been doing? And if I think of 3 different completely separate areas of life and I think they're all trash, I'm compromised. And I call it that. I'm just compromised right now.
Yep.
I explain that to my girl. I explain that to anybody that needs to deal with me that day. And I just say very simply, hey, I'm a little compromised. Need a little extra,
100%. A
little extra TLC today. I apologize. I'll get it together. But to notice that, and then that's permission to tell all the little ghosts and all the little bullshit that pops up around me and all the little gremlins, like, hey, get wrecked. I don't believe you right now.
Time for this.
Yeah, I just don't believe you right now. I'll check in on this later.
Right.
After I've had a good night's sleep, after I've like whatever. I just don't believe you right now. That's what works for me. And then I use AI quite a bit.
Nice.
I use AI to really quickly help me shift my perspectives. I think in interpreting communication, there's a lot of anxiety for people. What could this mean? Like what did I say this the right way or whatever? Like there's so many cool uses for it. Right. Where you can just get a little check-in, a little tap-in. Can you help me think about this different? And part of the reason why I'm building what I'm building is because I could literally talk to you for 5 hours about techniques on how to, when you're going through it or even when you're just cruising through life.
Right.
Prompts and frameworks for prompts.
Part 2.
That can, alleviate or elevate, or that are just genuinely assisting you in this magic carpet ride of being alive.
Yeah.
And it is, man, like the most significantly helpful resource I've ever come across in the 20 years I've been intensely focused on the study of like personal transformation.
Yeah.
So AI is and I'm not saying you got to use my thing. I'm not saying you got to use anything in particular. If you want to use Claude, you want to use GPT, it's whatever.
Right.
But using it as a tool to reflect on and the way that you want it, the way that you like it, it's like it's black belt, right? Especially where the models are now.
Right.
When someone listens to this, if someone listens to this a year from now, where the models will be, or 2 years from now, where the models will be,
right,
you will have not just simply PhD level,
right,
you will have cracked PhD level. Like one of the guys, one of the, you'll have top tier, literal world class,
right,
therapeutic assistance in your pocket or in your rectangle, available 24/7. You have it pretty much right now.
Yeah.
It's better than all your stoner friends. It's better than most of what's going on around
the
you.
drum circle.
Right. Sure, which I mean, all these things are great, but man,
Yeah.
it's if you use it even for 5 minutes talking about a problem,
Right.
you'll get it right away.
Wow.
There's nothing I can do to that outdoes the experience of you just getting curious and going and trying it yourself if you haven't already.
Right. Yeah. This aspect of, you were talking about the things that really helped you during this time and just where you're at now, and this idea of electrolytes and the importance of them. And the words that came through were social, emotional, biochemical battery.
Mm-hmm.
Of this aspect of like, do you have your nutrients right? Like, are you watered? Do you have the aspects of this? Are you setting this biochemical factory up for success? And then are you being the animal part of the social, emotional aspect of like checking in with your homies or just having a place to be witnessed? And I think, so many people, they downplay this stuff, and they drown themselves in this information deluge of like, what's wrong with me and how do I fix it?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I've really been present to as you've been speaking today, Randy, is your lexicon of language, and the ways that whether, guffaw, penultimate, like these words that are non-typical and traditional in the way that you're creating your experience. And it reminded me of a book I have on the bookshelf called Permission to Feel, where the spines of the book are from low to high energy and low to high pleasantness of emotions, and how average men have three emotions: mad, sad, and glad. And the distinction I was thinking of earlier, as you were talking about, the ability to express yourself, is the difference between normal and natural. Most men's norm is mad, sad, or glad, but the natural experience of being human is everything from joy and excitement to rage and all this, just beyond just this, there's no gradient, right? And when there is no gradient, which speaks to trauma of just this black and white thinking of 0 and 1 and on or off or fight or flight or rest and repair, is how just how the zest of life is lost.
Sure.
And it can become very bleak, but I've really appreciated the way in which you've integrated your intelligence into the fun of living. It's not just thinking our way to the answer, but it's also, getting on your one wheel and heading out to the beach and just walking around for a little bit. And
I know.
And yeah, it's really cool to witness you, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you, man. It's cool to witness you witnessing. Not just to throw it back at you, but like, it is cool that you've got an aperture for, that, to be able to be a part of a conversation and pull out what's interesting about it, to have any metacognitive fluency is precious, but then to be able to do a 2-step up there while you're at it is impressive. So hats off to you there. And I feel that like this morning I was playing guitar in my studio, and I was gonna go for a beach walk after that, and I was like, why not do both? So I brought my guitar and I did my beach walk while I did the guitar at the same time, and I love it. I think being an artist, I think hatching into the world through the eyes and ears and mouth of an artist is like, that's like the tuition there is just like, I mean, like that, the tutelage and everything that comes from that. Because let's take like 3D, making 3D art, for instance, like on the computer, where like how Pixar makes things, you know. My dad was interested in that stuff way before it was a big deal. It was like right on the cutting edge of it. And he would ask me, you know, I said he would kind of raise me through these frameworks of inquiry. But if the light's coming in a certain way, and let's say you're in a restaurant and you're sitting at a table and it's like a dark wood table and you've got a glass of water on that table, and there's maybe some stage type lights coming in and they're all different colors, and the light's passing through the glass of water on the table and it's making a pattern. And you see the shadow of the cup and you see the refracted light through the cup, and then you also get to see the refracted light through the water. That's one of those experiences where my dad might say, why do you think the light looks different passing through the glass itself, and why does it look different, you know, through the water? Be like, wow, it's because it's going through the water. And be like, well, why? What's happening there? What's the difference between these two things? And kind of start, because when you have to recreate the world in 3D, there's a lot of magic tricks. But you have to have this understanding you have to know the ingredients to cook with. Okay, you know, so light, physics in general, and lighting and light itself is just like crazy. Once you start paying attention to light, it makes your life incredible, because light does so many cool, miraculous, incredible things. And then and sound, you know, so I had this lens of interacting through the world with this question of how could I recreate this, or how can we create these things? And there's some really cool stuff that emerges there too, where when you're texturing things in 3D, if you want to create, sure, you can like take a picture of wood and then take that texture and put it on a 3D model. But a lot of times you want more control over things than that. So you have to understand the systems that you can deploy to generate those textures. And it happens to just be a handful of noises, different types of math that generate certain shapes. Once you spend time doing that, it's maddening, because you see the noise, you see the algorithm, you see you understand how to build anything. And you're like, okay, this is weird. Like, oh, well, I see the same thing here and 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 here. Why is it all just like the same 9 things? This is weird. There's not more. There's not like a whatever, and there's not, and it's very bizarre, right? And so, yeah, eventually you just kind of get used to it. You put that down. But then I spent, you know, a long time as a sound engineer and as a producer, and with the physics of sound, and you know, everything from playing on stage for lots of people and moving audiences, and using projecting myself to move audiences, and then creating recorded works that were going to be impactful for people too. And then the science of the best way to deliver that. You have to wear different hats. You have to put on your creative hat. But then I was also engineering my own stuff and producing and mastering and doing the whole thing. So you spend a lot of time with light. You spend a lot of time with sound. You have this kind of, you know, and then my armchair philosopher experience of being alive, and then I get, you know, pulled into the vortex of designing new types of experiences with this new technology that's emerging. Like, oh man, this is like so fun. This is so incredible, and it's confusing, and not every day is like a walk in the park or whatever. But I really think that by falling in love with reality on the backside of learning how to recreate it or try to create it in these different like endeavors, like, is inevitable. Because when you're like, okay, man, I'll make a pine cone. Okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just try that, my guy. Let me know. You know what I mean? Like, it's so cool. See, you use and we're not even doing it for real. It's not like we're, to be clear for those of you that may not know, they're not like recreating the molecular composition of a pine cone. There's no cellular matrix. It's just geometry, and then it's dressed in some fancy stuff. Yeah. So it's the equivalent of, taking some cardboard boxes and cutting them out into the shape and taping it together in the shape of a pine cone and then spray painting it very photorealistically. That's what's happening essentially. There are physics sims, like fluid sims and things like that, where they are taking, but even that is like real light physics. It's like there's things that approximate it, but it's still
right.
So all that is to say is like even to make the cardboard box version, in the pine cone you see something called phyllotaxis, which is like the organization of space that nature has derivatively, hunted and found. Like you see it in sunflowers, you see it in the galaxy, it's the thing where it's like, oh man, it's the golden. It's yeah, man, it's in the Mona Lisa, it's in everything, and it is. But what you're actually looking at, which is cool, is like that it's a life generating and supporting system. That's what we think is beautiful. It's a function we're attracted to. Aesthetically, we interpret it as beauty. It's actually the function, because again, we're a part of this machine that's been like the lineage of this thing far supersedes your concept of what's happening here. So you are attracted to something for the mechanics of it. You don't even know the mechanics of it.
Right.
Cool. So like, and that stuff is just constantly miraculously jumping out of.
Yeah.
So like when you get curious and you get stoked and you try to, I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna make this thing. Yeah. Make the pine cone, my guy. I mean, seriously, make a pine cone. That's like, you want to fall in love and like, and just, try to do that. So I think that's, and when you're an artist, you're learning how to express yourself.
Yeah.
And communicate the uncommunicable. And so you want like all the tools to be able to do that, because these words just don't do it. And, like you pointed out, I know a lot of words and I know a lot of stuff, and it just still doesn't do it.
Right.
But if you ask me how I'm doing today, and I say, I don't know. I don't know is pretty honest sometimes, but like if I'm like, I'm a little melancholic, but I got some optimism in me, kind of tired, and I sort of feel like giving up, but as soon as I think that, I'm really excited to try as hard as I can. That's cool. I can communicate that. But I could play you 3 notes on the guitar.
Right.
That would make you feel the way I feel.
Right.
Because how I'm doing seems to be a translation of how I'm feeling.
Right.
Because the feeling is the, like symbolism is the language of intuition. The intuition is the derivative experience of being. And the more you put in between those two things, like it's signal to noise ratio. So there's raw signal in the vibrato, the finger style. We could all hear where Jimi Hendrix was. We could hear where Kurt Cobain was. We could hear where Bob Marley was. And like that vibes with you in different, corridors of life or whatever. So that is why you learn to express yourself with art, because it's a feedback loop. And I happen to think this whole thing is consciousness. I think consciousness reifies existence, and I think awareness is what we typically call consciousness, and I think awareness is just consciousness observing itself. So I think it's a feedback loop.
Right.
And the more of those you can entertain in your own microcosm here, it strengthens the field of the whole. I don't know. Sounds good.
Yeah. No, I just I mean, the last question I was going to ask is, what's it mean to be human? But you kind of just answered it in a bunch of different ways. I mean, to be in the experience of reality and to be transmuting that through us, and also this ability to learn languages to communicate with that through, the art and all of it to me is art. All of this whole thing, it's all magic. What is it? Science is just magic explained, or magic is just science explained. Science is just magic explained.
I don't want to be human. Like, I just want to be. And like, that sounds convoluted and like, but truly, I think your experiences or my experiences, my vocabulary, my understanding of the mechanics of what's happening in this experience, the more that I can, famously, the more you know you don't know.
Totally.
And that's cool because you get to know more cool stuff and be in awe of that, but then you get more awe because there's more, you become more in awe of the things you don't know about. However, the more, as your palette, the colors in your palette increase, I think it increases the resolution of your being, like computer monitor resolution, like pixel density in a photo resolution. I think you actually get more of it. Think about it. If you're able to strengthen your attention, what that really means is you're able to control the agency of your will and your intent over time. Meaning you get more moments, you get more life because you're aware of more beats. And you're aware of the awareness. So your ability to find your way, make sense out of the world, map the space, and know your position and know the story about that position. I think that actually renders that reality, renders it closer to being true, which you find yourself more. You asked me more words, by the way. Coherence is a huge one. Coherence, I'm obsessed with right now.
Such a good. I've been talking a lot about that. I've been talking about a lot of congruence, but yes, coherence as well.
Coherence is a banger. For those that are not science nerds, that if you imagine a wave, just a line that depicts a wave, right? It's flat and then it crests up. That's called and then dips down below too, below the horizon. It's shaped like an S, turned sideways. And that's a sine wave. And let's make that one red. The line is red. And let's make another one and make it blue. And it's behind it. It's the same exact shape. That's in perfect coherence. If we move the blue one over or the red one over, then we're losing coherence, right?
Right.
And those effects on each other are, depending on what's going on, are not negligible, right? In physics, we explore the world through like signal and noise, and coherence is a huge part of the conversation. I'm not qualified to talk about quantum physics, or maybe when I read Feynman books or whatever, like I don't even know what the word physics means compared to some of these guys. However, this is how we're we've done a lot with this stuff. We've done a lot with these ideas and with the science. Why would we not interrogate our own experience through some of the similar lenses? We're doing crazy stuff. We're using superpositions. We're teleporting things at this point, literally teleporting stuff. We're using these concepts. Okay, I leave the door cracked for woo. I said like I'm kind of like anti-dogmatic, but I leave the door cracked for woo because I've had so many experiences in my life that I can't account for and don't want to, frankly. And it just makes life more fun to be like, what if, Right. And to the point of like the explanation of the magic trick, the quantum stuff is absolutely insane. Like we have quantum phenomena happening inside our heads. Olfact, smell is a quantum phenomenon, right? So like, okay, well, just in the language of who I want to become, I want to be my best self. I want to be my best Randy. And that guy has some hallmarks. The best Randy has this condition and this condition and this condition and this condition per my assignment, right? And so as a little experiment, I want to create a shape of that Randy with data. And I'm going to use AI to project this shape and to extract those data points. And then I'm going to design an experiment, where I teleport myself and become that Randy. And I do this by just observing the coherence with current Randy and that Randy. And the more data that I collect, what's cool about this is the observation itself. At the end of the day, when I look for basically moments, or I'm assigning categorically, here's how Randy I was today, that I have friends and I have a girlfriend and, so I have other sounding boards, you know what I mean, too, and you can tell whatever, but by the data, this is fascinating because just by looking for that coherence, you become coherent.
Yeah. Right.
And that wraps back to this distinction, mechanism, this technology of distinction, because I'm creating this distinction of that Randy. I have data that's helping me measure how my Randiness is doing. And that's been really fascinating because you look for evidence that you've been that guy. At the end of the day, I look for evidence that I was him.
Right.
And that's really cool. And that's something like I'm building into the tech that we're working on to help people not have to design these things so that it's just happening like effortlessly for them essentially. And it's a lot of fun and it works.
Right.
And yeah, I wind up being, and so now I'm having to actually dream that guy up faster.
Right.
And that's cool too. And eventually I think the tech will be in a place where it's like, oh, what if, oh, here we are. What if here we are. What if I could do, oh, here we are. I mean, and what if is, talk about the power of questions, because we never even really cracked into that stuff, but like that framework of how and, what if and then how, that will happen nearly instantaneously, where the cruising executive components of the thought are happening. You have your exocortex, your this other part of you that goes, oh, what if it hears that, and then the how? Oh, it's like this. This is how, right away. And if you're like cruising in real time and it's a little abstract, but you can imagine where there are the world has caught up to the speed of some of these things, and there's just this pliable ecosystem of agency and action that the speed of thought, your actions begin to take place at the speed of thought. That's exciting to me.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. A lot of topics for conversation number 2, apparently.
Yeah. I don't even know if we approached I'm going to talk about 3 things is what I said to myself before I sat down. I'm going to practice talking about 3 things. And I don't even know if I talked about one of the 3 things I was going to talk about. So yeah,
Same.
Absolutely.
Same. Yeah, no, it's been great. Where can people find more about Randy and the things he's up to?
Yeah. So right now, again, you can look for Randy Roberts AI on YouTube, and you can check out the TED Talk. You can find me on Instagram. I've started a bunch of brand new socials. It's Randy Roberts without the vowels, and I'm sure it'll be tagged in here. And then Aura Lloyd's, AURALOIDS, will be in beta shortly, doing a small cohort, and but you can jump on the list to be a part of that journey with us. And then and if you lock into, I'm designing some pretty fascinating stuff for next year. I'm designing some in-person things where I do a combination of I'm there coaching with AI and to a small group of people to see with some other technologies that I can't talk about just yet that are to see if we can do some radical transformation really quickly for people.
Let's go.
Which I'm super stoked about. So
yeah.
And I'm happy to come back and yap about anything anytime. So if you got questions, but I love to yap.
Well, awesome, brother. Well,
Let's
thank you so much for being on the show and giving us your time and attention and wisdom about all the different things.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. This is incredible. We need this. We need this here. We need you doing this here and you creating the space. is really awesome. And, taking the action is really important. So thank you for taking the action and for creating the space. It's an honor. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, you bet, man. Thank you. And to all of our listeners, thank you for taking the time to tune in, to give us your time and attention, to hear a little bit more about Randy and what he's been up to. And until the next episode, aloha.